All right. All right, all right. Good morning, men. You guys hear me okay? You can take it up just a tad. Um, Before we begin this morning, a couple of quick announcements. Another killer breakfast, don't you think? Man. I don't know that anybody has a better breakfast anywhere around town on Tuesday mornings than we do here at AIM. I know that's the reason a lot of you guys come, by the way, is for the breakfast. Al wanted me to remind you guys, table leaders, after this meeting, we shoot for about 7:30. We try to have you out of there by 8. But in the library, we're going to have a table leader meeting again today, so please join us if you're able this morning. And we want to do this a little bit more on a regular scheduled basis, because as we're growing, guys, and as you can see, I mean, look around. I mean, there's virtually no room for any more tables in this room. Maybe one or two, and that's it. So it's a good problem to have. It's really a privilege to be able to serve you guys, speaking on behalf of our team. But please come and join us. That's at those table leaders meetings is where all the table leaders get a chance to talk about you guys. Yeah. Well, you guys let me know when you're done with your conversation so I can move on. Hello? Hello? You want a couple more minutes? I'll give you a couple more minutes, and then you can. Bill Hall came up to me this morning, and he said, I did not know this. He went and had blood work done, or not blood work, but he went and it gave blood. And apparently, I did not know this, but when you give blood, you get an email back. How long did it take, Bill? About 10 days, you get an email telling you whether or not you have the antibodies for warding off COVID, and they are not allowed to give that information out to anybody. So it's a positive byproduct of going and giving some blood. You do get that information, and it's free. So that's good to know. Those of you who were praying for me, thank you. I went in yesterday, and they took out the stent. So you guys know I had that surgery, and I was in extreme pain. And they finally went in and they got the stent. I don't know if you guys ever had that done, but there's a stent that goes up through your urethra, up into your kidney, and it stays there for about a week, and then they go and they pull it out. It's not a kind of a happy thought, but anyway. So what they do is, I noticed when I got home. I've had this done before, but I forgot what it was like. So I noticed when I got home, there's a little monofilament line hanging out the end, the little tiny monofilament line. And I thought, well, that's interesting. They must use that to pull it out, and they do. But then when I went in to have the stent removed, the line wasn't there. And so they say, well, we're going to have to go look for it. So I said, well, that could be fun, And so they have this scope thing. It's huge, guys. I mean, it's huge. It's like that big around. It's got a big light on the end and a clamp and everything. And so they go in and they said the line wasn't there, so it folded up and went back up into the bladder. So they had to go up into the bladder to get it. And they finally got it, and they pulled it out. Actually, it was pretty painless, but they pull out, and it's about that long, this green tube that came out. And I'll tell you, I haven't been so happy in the last 24 hours. It's been really, really great. So thank you guys for praying for me for that. And so this morning, we're going to do a third installment on A Man and His Money. A lot of you men have come up and appreciated both a man and his time and a man and his money. I was talking to someone earlier that showed me their daily planner and all the different planning and organizing stuff that they've been doing. I hope some of this stuff has really been helping you guys. But this morning, I've asked Jay Inman to come, and he's going to share a testimony, but it's an important message that you're going to get from Jay today. Jay is not a normal man. Anybody know Jay? Yeah, well, then you'll know Jay's not necessarily a normal guy, but he's got a powerful testimony. I've not heard it, but I've been around a number of people who have, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. And then we'll have some discussion questions that you can drill down on at the very end. So Take it away, buddy.
So all you young guys, you need to pay attention to this. I'm going to tell you a story that starts off as a sad little tale. It's the same story I tell my sons around financial responsibility, integrity, all those kinds of things. So you young guys, pay attention. It took me 20 years to get into really serious trouble and another almost 20 years to get out of it. Pay attention to how that happened. Literally blessings of the Lord. So, back in 1981, I got commissioned into the Army, brand new little second lieutenant. Oh, by the way, second lieutenants didn't make much. And in the relative term of things, they still don't. And so as I progressed into the Army, at one point very early on, I eloped with my wife. And because her parents thought I was worse than fresh dog doo-doo on the front lawn. And so, and really, we found out why later. Jan's mom had a previous husband, and literally when she was giving birth to the baby, he was a soldier, and he left her. Just left her literally in a labor and delivery room. And so that was something that my father-in-law and Nancy had to deal with. And I got to tell you something. The grace of God is tremendous. I got to be in the hospital room when my mother-in-law, dying of liver cancer, actually got off the bed and we danced. And she said, I'm going to see Jesus today. And sure enough, she did. The grace of God is tremendous. So, let's get to my sad little tale. 1982, I go into the Army. I do 17 years in the Army. We spent 9 years in Germany, loved every minute of it. And oh, by the way, we were living paycheck to paycheck. When we wanted something, we got out the plastic. So anybody familiar with this story? And Jan was more disciplined than I was about money. Thankfully, I spent so much time in the field or deployed that I didn't have a lot of places to go spend that money. And Amazon did not exist then. And so there was no place to run up the credit card. And so 17 years of this, and I decided that when Microsoft made an offer, okay, I'm tired of this stuff. Bill Clinton's president. I'm out of here. And so, but I stayed in the inactive ready reserve, and that'll have an impact a little bit later on. There's something that those first 17 years prove. It's Proverbs 22:7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. As you increase your debt, you become more of a servant to those who own your debt. They are faceless. They are electronic. You have to pay the minimums. And so the other thing that, as we move through this, after moving all over 17 years, I was out for 5 years, excuse me, and then the Army involuntarily recalled me back to active duty. Off I went to Djibouti. And while I was there, I got promoted to lieutenant colonel. Bam! Up to central Iraq, and I got to build a big data center at Balad. What a blast. Literally. We took rockets and mortars every 3 to 5 days. I got back from Iraq, and Jan and I were really agonizing over our financial situation. And there was no way out. We paid the minimums, living from month to month. And so here I was, suddenly a lieutenant colonel out at NORAD Northcom, and I didn't have just one kid in college. I had 2 kids in college, and one of them was going to OBU, Baptist University down in Oklahoma. Great university, hugely expensive. And so we're struggling through that. We're saddling up with student loan and debt. We've got cars to pay for. We had a mortgage out in Peyton, and on and on and on it goes. And at one point, I added it up. If we paid just the minimum on all of our debt, by the time Jan and I got to our 80s, we would have paid a little over $1 million just to get that stuff paid off and down. We arrived at this very interesting church called Mountain Springs. And this is 2006 now. I've gotten back from Iraq, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to go worship. And at this point, we felt like from a spiritual worship perspective, we'd been in the wilderness a very long time. And so we arrive at Mountain Springs. Hey, you know, that guy Steve Holt up there, sounds like he's from Georgia, but that's okay. Couple of Sundays into that, Steve gave a sermon. And he was talking about some of their financial travails. And by the way, a lot more disciplined than we were. We were just kind of wandering around from paycheck to paycheck. And Steve talked about the Sunday or weekend where they put all their checkbooks, all their credit cards, all their bills in a stack on a table. And they laid hands on it, gave their finances to the Lord, established the discipline to continue tithing, and they just asked for the Lord's blessings and help. We went home that day, and Jan and I hardly talked to each other. Okay, let's do this. So we sat down on a Monday or Tuesday evening. We put our checkbooks, our credit cards, our bills, our credit card statements, our mortgage statement on a table. And we prayed over it. And the first thing we asked the Lord to do is to help us tithe. Because we've been sporadic in our giving. Oh yeah, cool missionaries show up, we go give them some money. And we better give this Sunday. Oh, well, you know, we got to pay this other bill first. And we decided to do that first every month, was to tithe. And that began our discipline in tithing. So keep in mind, folks, again, all the way up until, from 1981 to 2006, we had not exercised discipline in tithing. Therefore, we had not exercised discipline in our finances. Therefore, our relationship was strained by the impact of these finances. How a man deals with his finances has a direct revelation, or it reveals, not a revelation, it reveals how a man deals with his wife and kids, how a man deals with his Father in heaven, how a man deals with his profession. And so a lot of us here, I suppose, are going to be like me. You have little silos in your brain. We are compartmented thinkers. Ladies are spaghetti thinkers. That's why they can go circular up and down sideways and come to a conclusion faster than us. We have to work from compartment to compartment. For some of you here, you have compartments where you've got that credit card that you've run up that your wife does not know about. Or you've got that money flowing into an account that your wife doesn't know about that you're using for all these other things. Or some other things. And you're in trouble. And Dave Ramsey has a great curriculum. In 2006, when we did this, holy moly, there's that credit card in the back of my brain, if you will. Jan hit the ceiling, bounced around the living room, and she's a great lady, by the way. She's superb. And so we finally sat down with Grace and worked through it. Worked through that. She loves to go get stuff for the house, stuff that we could not afford at the time. And so discipline in your finances, men, you lead out on that. Don't let her lead, if you will. She will lead. She'll be part of it. But if you just kind of back off to let her lead, then you're saying, okay, you can have it. And then that little credit card in the back of your brain is going to be sticking there. So we started tithing. We established discipline in our finances. Using the Dave Ramsey method, we started with all the small bills, and we rolled those payments into the bigger bills. Now, keep in mind what I said. I'd figured out that if we kept paying the minimums, we'd pay over $1 million by the time we hit our 80 years old. Well, I got hired away from the government. I was a GS-14 out at US Northcom. Got hired back to Microsoft. And we don't make these decisions lightly. We make this decision together. All the professional ones, all the big purchases, we talk and make them together. We are a partnership. We are one. And so for my finances, having her discipline was a superb action on both of our parts. Deuteronomy 28:12. The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And then there's a verse in Malachi, the only Italian book of the Bible. There's a verse in Malachi. I dare you to tithe. Then see what I do with my storehouses for you. Obviously that's not the exact verse, but I dare you to tithe. And so God was daring us. Okay, so we picked it up. 2006 to the present. We walked into this house, and if it wasn't for the housing market at that time being way down and the interest rates being way down, we could not have gotten this house, even with a VA loan. And we walked in, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, Lord, it's going to be a whopper of a mortgage. And Jan saw this moose on the wall with a bell on it. That was exactly, we had the same moose at our house out in Peyton as a dinner bell. And Jen said, okay, this one. But at this point, we were very close to having our cars paid off. And of course, you get paid a little more at Microsoft than you do as a GS-14 in the government. And so, and believe me, that was the Lord's blessing. It ain't because I'm a smart guy. It's the Lord's blessing. And so we took a deep breath, and we got the house that we live in now. And when I racked and stacked it all up, it's like, okay, Lord, it's now that total counter for paying the minimums all the way out to the 1980s, that's about $1.2 million now. We're disciplining, we're tithing pretty rapidly with some bonuses from Microsoft and all that. We paid off all our cars. Shortly after that, another big bonus came through. I won some award. We paid off all our plastic. Last October, we're sitting there looking at the election and all the mess going on. And I said, I'm not a prophet. But I will say that my analysis indicates that this nation is going to go to a tough place no matter who wins. Yes, I want Mr. Trump to have his Red Sea moment and walk up into the White House. But the next 4 years might be a test of the American church. A vital, vital test. The first 100 days alone, and the top 25 things the liberals, the Democrats, the socialists want to do in our nation are going to be frightening. I really believe that. So I'm sitting back there in October, and I said, I haven't paid much attention to my stock options. They've accumulated and matured and sat out there. And I got a big, huge chunk when I first went back to Microsoft. And at the 5-year mark, back last October, they all matured. And I've tried very hard to ignore them. And so I got on the Morgan Stanley site, and I looked at it, and my jaw dropped. And Jan's first statement out of her mouth was, we can pay off the house. God's blessings, totally God's blessings, a result of tithing, a result of disciplining our finances, of having integrity with each other in our finances. By God's blessings, last October, we paid off the house. Remember that $1.2 million bill? Remember that $1.2 million bill when we're sometime in our 80s? Today, it's zero. God's blessings. I paid attention to my pastor back in 2006. And they've been disciplined in this a lot longer than we've been. This is about 20 years to screw it up and then 20 years to fix it. But God's blessings are tremendous. And it's not that we necessarily set out to dare the Lord. Oh, hey, Lord, we tithe. Where's your storehouse opening? You know what? It took 20 years for that to open. That was a test of 20 years. We had to once we got into the habit, it became a part of our lives. And here's why. Here's why. We love having young folks over that have no place to go from the road, and we have a lot of adopted sons and daughters now that we interact with in addition to our own kids. Here's the goal that Jan and I set when we first put our hands on that stack of bills and credit cards. Romans 13:8. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. Do you know how hard it is to love other people, to demonstrate that love and giving, if you're up to your ears in debt? And by the way, if you're up to your ears in debt, it's over your nose. You're drowning. So, a man and his finances reveals relationship to his wife, reveals his integrity, reveals his relationship at work. Most importantly, it reveals your relationship to your Savior. So don't think I'm trying to tell y'all to go tithe. What I'm trying to tell y'all is the discipline of tithing, the test of tithing, the test of being financially disciplined. All of those things took time. We had to continue in it. It started with a challenge from my pastor, and now, praise the Lord, we're debt-free. And that's a blessing from the Lord.
Just so you'll know, Jay, no one ever applauds when I'm done. The takeaway, one of the takeaways for me, oh, thank you. One of the takeaways for me is that he pays attention to his pastor. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know what, I need to pay more attention to my pastor. One of the things that he mentioned, though, and what could happen in the church, I have a theory. I really believe that we're inevitably going to lose our tax-exempt status. And unfortunately, for over the years, for many churches, that has been kind of an excuse for not getting up and speaking boldly about the things that are going on in our culture. And so in some ways, I think it would be a blessing to lose our tax-exempt status. And I believe that while it might hurt some churches, I believe the real church of Jesus won't be hurt at all. Because I think our giving is born out of what the spirit is that you just heard. And I believe that's very true of our church, by the way. Going through this series reminds me we have been putting off bringing in Financial Peace University for months now. And a lot of it has to do with all of the different things, obviously, that are going on around us right now. But we need to get serious about bringing that back in. How many of you, just a show of hands, have been through Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey? And I'm sure that you men would testify that that's a valuable resource for us to have. How many of you, if we brought it in, I'm not sure when we would do it during the week, but if we brought it in, how many of you would say, I would like to sign up for that this time around? Just a show of hands. Okay, that's not that many, but we'll probably do that in the main sanctuary too. It's something that we really, I know Steve and I have talked about this before, and Steve's really passionate about this. We really need to promote it. And I think that, I haven't checked with you on this, but I know your heart, and we probably need to get on that sooner rather than later. So as a takeaway for what Jay just shared, life implication, how I handle my money, he shared that, will reveal the condition of my heart toward God, my family, and my profession. So I suggested a couple of life application discussion questions that you guys can tackle today. What does my handling of my money reveal about my integrity? And what does my tithing reveal about my relationship with God. And you notice, by the way, we didn't get into tithing on the net or the gross. You guys familiar with that whole thing? Someone once told me it doesn't. It just depends on whether you want the net blessing or the gross blessing. So I'll let you guys tackle that one.